Hey, good day. This is Greg Lewis, the city manager in Lebanon, and welcome to our show, Lebanon in Depth. Today we're going to explore CSO generally and what that means when I say those three letters, CSO, and we're going to specifically bring it down into CSO 9, which is a project that's in the works, and it's already being worked on, and will begin construction next spring in 2013. And I have with me Ryan, and Ryan, how would it be correct to pronounce your last name?
Wingard.
Wingard, because I always want to say Wingate. Before I said Wingate, I say Wingard. Ryan Wingard, who is with us today, and he's with Wright-Pierce, are one of our engineering firms that work with us. Really pleased to have you. And then also I have Mike Lavalla, our Director of Public Works. Hi, Mike. How are you doing today?
Hey, Greg.
Good. Now, Ryan, you're a newbie because you're a new guest. Mike's had to do this, but we always ask people that come on our show for the first time, kind of their background and how did you reach the point of doing what you do now? I mean, it's how in life's courses did you work out so now you're doing what you do?
I'm a civil environmental engineer by trade. Went to the University of Michigan. I have a brother and an uncle who are both engineers, so it was an obvious path for me. Followed my wife out here for her job, so I'm in New England now and loving every minute of it.
That's really good. That's really good. And in your line of work and the job you do, kind of in terms of a job description about what you do, what would be a capsule job description for what the job you do?
Project manager for this CSO program project, and I oversee a lot of the personnel resources for the work, and I also oversee a lot of the technical design work that occurs.
Oh, that's good. Now, CSO, first I think we need to decide what that CSO stands for. What does CSO stand for?
CSO is Combined Sewer Overflow.
And now, I learned about this, back in New York. There was considerable problem with our water and our sewer interconnecting in storm sewer and wastewater sewer. And there was a big proposal to try to tackle that, and then we're going to tackle it regionally. And then I came to Lebanon now, and I'm learning more. I'm still a neophyte at CSO work, but Mike, you've been here as our Director of Public Works. Can you give us a background of what's taken place in a kind of overview, and then where are we at today?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. As Ryan said, the CSO is Combined Sewer Overflow, which refers to many New England communities and many nationwide had combined sewers that accepted both wastewater and stormwater. And what would happen, as the case in Lebanon, there are a number of outfalls where when the volume of both those becomes too great, it actually discharged to the receiving waters, Mascoma River, Connecticut River. So the project in Lebanon began in 2000, which was a result of an administrative order issued by the EPA for the city to begin phasing out these CSOs. So what the city did, the process we used was separating by new mains, new wastewater mains and new storm drains. In 2009, the administrative order was changed, and it's actually become a consent decree with the EPA. We have until 2020 to completely eliminate all the CSOs. We've had 8 phases so far, beginning in 2000, total of probably 8.5 miles of linear roadway that's been affected, and engineering construction approximately 33,000 up to this point. So now we're moving into CSO 9.
So there's been a great deal of work done. There's still a great deal of work yet to be done.
Yes.
We have this decade lying ahead of us, and we're on this mission to complete it. I have a lot of admiration for some of the policy leadership from the city council level as to how we go about this, because we're really, when we go in and separate these pipes and such, is we have a great deal of disruption going on in the streets. So there's been a conscious decision to really relook and redo and look at the street itself. So not only is this we're changing out piping and moving piping around, we're actually going in, and since we're going to return the whole thing up, we're looking at how to best reconstruct it once the piping's in place. And I think that there's been look by previous policymakers and our current policymakers trying to do a good job for the city with its infrastructure so it lasts a long time. And we recently had another wrinkle about it because we were kind of examining whether one size fits all in terms of how we reconstruct these streets. Whether we have just, we're like on a direct line, we're going to do this and this and this, and this is the way it's going to be. Basically, we'll interface with the neighborhoods, but, it's kind of that approach. But now we modified that, and not only do we interact with the neighbors like we always have, but now there's some standards that the city council has brought forward, and it's basically looking at the functionality of the streets, and then talking about based on whatever the classification of a street is, whether it's a local street or a connecting street, or whether in the local street, what kind of a local street is it? It's coming about and looking at these fundamental issues about sidewalks on streets, curbing on streets, alternatives to curbing on streets. I think there was a total commitment. We're always going to replace these pipes, which I think that was a strong commitment to keep, not to let pipes lie on the ground. They've been in the ground for a long time. We're going to replace those things. And of course, the paving quality is an important thing for us. And there was discussion about that, and the continuous higher quality of paving is there. How we do sidewalks is up for debate, and has some discussion. And the biggest thing I think is the communication with the neighborhoods, is that we're trying to look at how we improve and where we can touch base with people on a personal level and get personal feedback. So they're a part of this process. They're big stakeholders for us, and so I think that's a modification of the course. The course remains the same, though, to complete the CSOs. And I think we could probably get in some of the specifics of the CSO 9, and it'll probably be revealing about CSOs generally. First, when I say CSO 9, what am I saying? What am I describing? What does that really mean to people that are listening out there?
CSO 9 is the 9th construction contract to separate the sewers, the storm drain and the sanitary sewer. So CSO 9 is just the next step and the next target area for the sewer separation. And when we're thinking about CSO 9, we have roughly 6 streets that we're going to be focusing on. We have the lower area, which is Orchid and Pleasant and Farman. Then we have the upper area, which is Tenley, Powers, and Whitcomb.
And so we actually kind of have we have a map. We use maps. I think we're very robust in the utilization of some of the hardware we have now in terms of getting very good drawings and mapping, and of course with all the kinds of software engineering packages, the GIS packages that exist now. It's very thorough. I'm just totally impressed. From the time I started out being a manager in 1990 to where we are now in 2012, it's been quite an upgrade in terms of the technical tools at our behest. The mapping itself, I look at it, and I have one in front of me now, and it kind of shows that where we're working. Mike, is there any common reference to Ryan made mention of the specific streets, but is there any common reference to what part of our community we're working in right now in terms of people who might not know all these streets? What would it be? How would we characterize it? I characterize it off Sim Hill, and I guess I get there because I happen to live in the neighborhood. I happen to live in the CSO 9. It's personal to me too because I actually live in CSO 9.
Yeah, it is off Seminary Hill and in West Lebanon, where Seminary Hill and 12A, where it extends up from the shopping centers into West Lebanon. When we look at the phasing, also many times we try to develop projects based on the impact they have on a specific outfall, not where in the city it is. But this is is probably the easiest way to describe it in West Lebanon, just off Seminary Hill.
So basically, where this water is flowing is kind of helping us, and that analysis was, of course, done by some very careful engineering manners, and that comes up and helps define the projects that have unfolded. And we're going to try to touch base on the various locations during our time here. If we run into any limitations in the time of our discussion, we apologize ahead of time. I think we'll probably try to cover most of these areas that we're going to be on. I guess we have we have really identified 9 locations, and there's certain linear feet in each of these locations that we're working with. And so why don't we start like that, I think. And the first street is Pleasant Street. Could we maybe comment a little bit on Pleasant Street? And I think when we do this, we always kind of reflect on how the process of CSO work goes.
Sure.
And now, taking Pleasant Street as our first out of the chute.
Pleasant Street will involve roughly 800 lineal feet of roadway work and piping work. The existing width of the roadway is anywhere between 21 feet and 23 feet, so we're going to try to maintain a constant width with the new design of 22 feet. Pleasant Street also has a 2-foot esplanade on one side of the road, and we're going to try to maintain that esplanade. Also has a 5-foot sidewalk that we will be maintaining, so folks who are used to walking down Pleasant Street will be able to continue to do that after the project is complete.
And this definition of an esplanade?
Esplanade is just a small grassy area between the paved area and the sidewalk.
Thanks.
Yeah.
One of the new features of our communication with as we partner with members of our community is walkabouts. And these walkabouts are really lovely occasions where, the 3 of us participated in 2 walkabouts with regard to CSO 9. One of the walkabouts on the second night had to do with starting on Pleasant Street. And basically walkabouts are, we invite all the residents of the particular part of the project we're going to do the walkabout in to join us either beginning of the walk or come out on the lawn when we reach each location. And Pleasant Street began a walkabout from there, and it was a very pleasant evening, and quite a few people joined us at the beginning of the walk, and they would come out from their homes. And as we go, there was just this good conversation. We had conversation with Ryan talking as our project manager, and Mike along these ways, and our city engineer and our water superintendent, and all having good discussions. And we also had our planning people with us, so that was a very good way of learning Pleasant. And what more did we know about Pleasant?
Well, right now Pleasant Street is served by drainage by some limited ditch work. There are also a couple of catch basins that are connected to the sewer that we're planning on removing, but then replacing with new catch basins. In order to direct that water to the catch basins, we need some curbing there. So Pleasant Street is an area where we're proposing some vertical face curbing.
Yeah. And vertical face curbing means pretty well straight up curbing.
Correct.
And this curbing we utilize is made as granite curbing. Is that correct?
Yes,
that's
correct.
I know as we went up the street, we're kind of going up the hill, kind of an incline going up it. And we went up it, and it took us a little bit of time, but we stopped very carefully at each place. And at the top of that, then we encountered our next. Well, I don't know whether we go. That would be our next street. What would be our next street?
Well, if you're continuing up Pleasant, then Farman would be the next street.
So Farman would be the next street up, and then we kind of turned down Farnham. And that was a different street. Every street's different, and that's really why it's unique. You always think, well, when you just drive on a car, you don't get the feel what you do on a walkabout.
Yeah.
Right.
One area on Pleasant, probably helpful to note, Pleasant has a sidewalk, and we plan on maintaining that sidewalk in this iteration of the
design. And that's kind of our general philosophy in our CSO work, that if there is a sidewalk in place, unless there's some really uproar about wanting to remove it, which is probably doubtful, but if it did happen, most of the time we're going to replace that sidewalk and just bring it to grade, to current standards, right? Yep. So maybe we'll go on to Farnham a little bit and see what we saw on Farnham.
Well, Farman is as a lot of people know who live in that area or who travel that area, is a pretty narrow stretch of roadway.
It is, for sure.
Its width varies anywhere from 20 to 22 feet, and what we're going to try to do is maintain a 20-foot width. One of the interesting pieces from a technical standpoint is the intersection of Farman and Orchid.
Yeah.
Very steep transition from Farman down to Orchid. So that's going to be one of our challenges during the project. We're also looking at different methods for curbing along Farman. In the straight sections, we're hoping to use the straight vertical curb, the granite curbing.
Which we talked about.
Correct, but there is also a pretty severe S-curve in Farman as you get closer to Seminary Hill. And in that area, we're thinking about using more of a sloped curb, or what they would call a mountable curb.
So we're accounting for the contours of really the natural flow of this existing road, and we're trying to adjust to what we're encountering.
Correct.
Because I noticed it, and I also know when we get into these areas, people have concepts. They have questions and questions about concerns about the design, but they also have concerns about the traffic experience. And I know that on that street, Farman, there was concern about speed, and there was concern about the traffic. There was people who have children and people who walk feeling some discomfort with the level of speed there. And just as follow-up to that, we have arranged for that particular street to go before the Public Safety Committee, because design is one thing we're working on, but these issues of traffic and speed, we will not ignore them, but they need to go through the Public Safety Committee, which is where they'll go now. And we made that arrangement. And of course, Mike is part of the support for that committee, and as well as our police chief, Jim Alexander. So we're going to try to help address that further. They had been there before, and we're going to continue to help it, because they do have concerns, and we want to know everybody we listen to those. So that's important. But as we go up, it seems a challenging street in terms of our design. That's from a layperson like myself who doesn't really understand on the level of engineering how you get up that street. It goes up and it goes curving, and you go up and you hit Sim Hill on the top. And is that a challenging street for engineering, or is that a street? Well, for lay it might be challenging, but it's something that's more.
It's a challenging street in that we have to work within the confines of the existing streetway. There's really not much room to move east or west on Farman as far as expanding or widening the street.
Yeah.
So there are definitely some challenges, especially around the S-curve. There are also challenges related to drainage, and
Yes.
there are a lot of residents in that area who have experienced historical flooding issues at their house because there is no way to collect that water that runs off and into the property. So the addition of curbing on Farman, I think, is a very integral part of the project.
So water flow is really part of it, and it's part of the whole deal, but that's really captured. Maybe we should hit Alcott a little bit.
Sure.
And then we'll go up top, and then maybe we'll swing back down and make sure we covered anything we have missed.
Right. So if you're up on Farman and you're looking down towards Maple on Orchid, you can kind of remember that there's a pretty steep hill coming off of Farman, and as I mentioned, that's one of the more challenging design components. There's a retaining wall that's there that we're going to be most likely replacing and improving. Same with the other streets. Orchid has some drainage issues. The existing drainage is served by some very limited ditch line work, and what we'd like to do once again on Orchid is to install curbing. Yeah. And
because when we talked about that with the neighborhood, because the water's flowing down, we got to deal with it. I mean, we have to help the neighbors. They have to help figure out how we do this, and they really kind of boiled down to a couple ones. One was a drainage swale. I'm not sure if that's the correct way I said it, and then the other was curbing. But when you have a drainage swale, you have to take more room up to create that and have to engineer it properly. And that takes more of individuals and property. And so we really don't want to infringe into people's private property unless we really have to do it in order to achieve the engineering result. So that has to be a question they help resolve. And I think we had dialogue with people along there about their perspectives on that. And we kind of reached a lot of there was different points, but the curbing seemed a better choice from their perspective overall, from the people that are on that block.
Yeah, and another challenge on these streets, as we look at the vertical versus mountable curb, is the access that residents want to their property, or if they have on-street parking. These are narrow streets, and trying to come to some agreement on, okay, how you're going to provide the opportunity to have on-street parking or partial on-street parking and on their property, and how do you do that while still maintaining capturing of the surface water flow.
And that's kind of led to some discussion about we had vertical curb, and then we had slope curb. I guess that was, I don't know if that's the proper terminology.
Slope curb or mountable curb.
Mountable curb. That that there's some perhaps some utility on mountable or slope curb for residents in certain areas where they're parking issues about parking on the street, or people are maybe, as traditionally they've been parking more on their lawn sometimes. So there's that issue there. So that's one of the ones we'll be grappling with. And there. For purposes of making sure we touch base, let's just go up top to the other portion, which is higher up. And then I think we'll circle back and see if we need to catch some things, and maybe even some questions that have been asked of us all over the project. So,
sure.
So up top is where I live, on Tinley. I live on Tinley. And so let's describe what the street's starting with, maybe where we start our walkabout. We did, again, the Tuesday prior to the Thursday, where we did the walkabout down below, we did a walkabout out there. And it was another enjoyable evening. And there was a lot of good turnout. And a lot of people walked the entire distance with us, and people were out there on their lawns talking to us, and that was really fun.
Yeah, it was great to see the turnout there.
Yeah. So what street do we start with on the upper section of CSO?
Let's start where we met, which was Whitcomb Avenue. And that is one of the wider streets on the project.
Yeah, it's a beautiful wide street.
Yep, we're at about 26 to 30 feet existing roadway width, and we're going to try to maintain about 28 feet wide throughout that project. No sidewalk there existing, so we're not proposing to add sidewalk.
Yes.
And right now the drainage network is handled by surface ditch lines. And what we'd like to do is get that drainage below the surface and install a new storm drain with catch basins and curbing along each side.
Because several residents had remarked they were getting water shooting into their driveway and onto the garage, where they had some of the those lower garages you drive in, kind of dips in, get some water in there.
Correct.
This will help a little bit with the water flow, the water drainage in the area by us moving along the way we're going.
Correct.
But it was pretty straightforward, I thought. Is there a wrinkle in there that we?
This might be a good time to bring up, at the driveways we typically install, well, we call it a berm, but it's maybe a half-inch to an inch tall strip of asphalt that goes down in the driveway that directs the runoff past the driveway so it doesn't enter the driveway, and then shoots it down to the nearest catch basin. And
that's quite helpful, because right now they don't have that little berm there. That water's shooting right down in there, and so at least they have a little berm in there. And I guess the magnitude of the storm could vary, but the little bit of the berm can make some difference for people. So, and it's easily driven over. I kind of witnessed some of that, in terms of accessibility in their driveways. So, does that kind of get us through Whitcomb then for now? Anyway?
It does, and it takes us down to the Powers area.
Yeah, the Powers is kind of when you take a turn on Powers, we had another CSO project further along
on Floyd Avenue.
On Floyd Avenue that came toward Powers.
Did a portion of Powers
on it. And what do we have at Powers? What were some of the issues we had to deal with, or at least visit with our residents about?
Powers, I think one of the biggest issues was whether or not to have a sidewalk installed where there currently is not a sidewalk installed on Powers.
Yes.
And I think that's an issue that is most likely going to come before the Bike Ped Committee. So a final decision has not been made as to whether or not a sidewalk will be installed on Powers.
Yeah, one of the questions and kind of the challenges of doing the CSOs is that we have a bike ped committee, and we also have some principles by the council that talks about walkability and bikeability, and we have to try to connect our neighborhoods, and that's a bit of a challenge. It's the way our neighborhoods are constructed with the different elevations, and there's some dead-ending things going on and some developments of a condominium in that particular area that makes it not easy to see where it'll be connected. But if you don't do some things as we go through it, or at least consider it, you always look at lost opportunity, and this is an opportunity to do that. But there wasn't, the neighborhood from their perspectives weren't like, they weren't terribly negative, but they didn't, they couldn't see whether the connectivity for them specifically was going to be helpful. I mean, is it a sidewalk to nowhere? Well, we certainly don't want to do that, but is it a sidewalk part of the total bike ped process? So this is kind of something we'll face. And now we probably should go down Tinley, and Tinley goes on down to a cul-de-sac. I live on Tinley, and my bulldog joined us in the route, but she lasted about 30 feet, and then she lost breath, and we had to take her back in. But my wife watched us from the lawn chair as we strolled by in our walkabout. But tell us a little bit about Tinley, and then take us to the...
Tinley currently has a roadway width of 24 to 26 feet, so we're going to maintain about 24 feet wide throughout the length of Tinley. No sidewalk there now, so we're not proposing to add any sidewalk. And the existing drainage, once again, similar to the other streets, is handled by some limited ditch work and then also some catch basins that are tied directly to the sewer. So our goal there is to collect that water in the street via the curb. Yes. Granite curbing once again, and we've decided on vertical granite curbing in that location. And then the catch basins to pick up that storm water.
That'll be really helpful, the catch basins. In our last couple of minutes here, I think it's kind of good. Let's just kind of zoom back and look at the whole project, and I think we could maybe, Ryan, would you reflect on some of the opportunities and challenges in the project, and maybe the most frequently asked, top 3 or 2 questions we've been asked?
One of the opportunities that I see is on Tinley, and there have been some resident complaints about some flooding in their backyards.
Yes, that's right.
And one of the things that we're going to be looking at is picking up some culvert flow from the far end of Tinley and putting it into our new storm drain to hopefully alleviate some of that flooding in the backyards. So that's an opportunity that I see. One of the challenges, and I think I already mentioned it, is kind of that Farman and Orca intersection and working the grades
around there. That's a difficult one. Boy, that's a difficult one, the way that it's constructed. It's a geography there, maybe that's not the wrong word, geography. It's a geology, maybe. I don't know.
Topography.
Topography, that's the right word there, about how to say, because it is, you look at it, and even from a layperson, like, it's like, hey, that's a challenging thing there. Mm-hmm.
One of the frequently asked questions that we get is when the roadway is installed, a lot of the residents have lawn areas that are rather flat. Yeah. And they want to make sure that if a roadway and curbing is installed, that we don't block drainage coming off their yard. Yeah. And one of our focuses will be to maintain that positive drainage away from the house so we don't create those bird baths in the front yards. Yeah.
And sometimes people wonder whether they're going to be blocked off for days from their property. I think we clarified that pretty well, that there's a contractual provision that requires the construction company to make sure that they're accessible and they're not closed down for very long, right, Mike?
Right, and we have a representative from Ryan's firm that is out there full time, plus the contractor has their representative, so they always work very cooperatively with the neighborhood and residents, and if they need to limit some access at some point, they give them enough notice that they can make other arrangements or park elsewhere.
Other top 2 questions?
One repeated question was, what do we do with some landscaping that we may have close to the roadway? Yeah. Is it my responsibility as the homeowner to move that, or is it the contractor's responsibility? And our response to that was, if it's something that's near and dear to your heart, you may want to take it upon yourself to move that bush or tree or shrub. But ultimately, it is the contractor's responsibility to put back the site how they found it.
That's terrific. That's terrific.
Or better.
Or better.
Well, I think that it's a human event to have a CSO project in your neighborhood. And I think that's we want to make sure people universally in the neighborhood that we're in and in the community in general to understand. We want to understand them, and we want them to understand us when we engage in this. And we want them to be respectful of their rights and their needs, and we want them to be respectful that we have certain things we have to need cooperation and good communication. We're going to have that, and then I think we all build understanding. So this will build understanding of what a CSO project is. It does have effects on our lives when we go through it, but at the end, the neighborhood with the right kind of inputs will be served well, and I think they'll see some beneficial upgrading of their neighborhood systems, where they can both drainage of water, movement of traffic, the quality of the street that'll be in front of their house, and the upside here is very significant, and going through the process and the way we're doing and the way they're doing, cooperating. I'm really proud that all the neighbors on CSO 9 have come out and joined the conversation. They're a bunch of good civic-minded people, so we really appreciate that effort. We're going to close here shortly. Mike, from your perspective, anything you'd like to share on the CSO generally, or on the CSO 9 specifically?
Well, 9, again, I'd like to echo, really appreciate the involvement of the residents. I don't want their involvement to stop at this point. If anybody has any questions, anything to do with the project, they can call my office at Public Works. They can check the website. We're very, I guess, blessed with a very robust IT department, and we've gone from the early phases of the CSO where you had to tell people come to our office to look at plans versus now they can go to the website and look at plans. So check the website often, call if there's any questions or anything. We want to work with the residents.
Yes, that's our positive point. From your point of view as our project manager on this with your company, Ryan, do you have any closing things you'd like to share with our residents here in Lebanon?
I would say once again that I really appreciate their involvement this far, and the things that we hear on the walkabout and the comments that we hear at the public meetings are very important to us, and they do serve to guide and keep us thinking about new ways to look at things and improve things in the roadway. So I would just encourage them to keep up that good work and look forward to some more conversations with them.
Oh, that's great. Well, I think we're going to basically wrap it up now. We're going to take the slideshow that we're having today. We're going to put, of course, this will show on CATV, and will also be on our website. And we'll have our slides up on the website too, so people can get more information, both by watching our discussion and also looking at the slideshows we're going to have up on the website. We're committed to you, the residents of Lebanon, and what we do in every way we can. And the CSO projects that begin here with 9 will continue through this decade. We're going to try to continuously improve our work and make sure we've got good communication with you, and we thank you for your support. And we wish you well. And please, if you get invited to a walkabout with us, join us. And we'd love to see you and love to get to know your concerns. Thanks a lot today.